What's going on, Port fans? Welcome back to another video on my channel, and today unfortunately I'll be reviewing Port Adelaide's loss to West Coast by 37 points. We go down to 2-1 after round 3, and it's a bit of a reset, a bit of a slap across the head really, a bit of a wake-up call is what I'm trying to say after what was a pretty dismal performance, especially in the first half against a red-hot Eagles who came out firing really at Optus Stadium and just put to bed the game by half time, and it was just a really classy performance by them, and can't take away any credit because they were just purely exceptional. So unfortunately we have to review this game, we have to review the first loss of the year, but nonetheless we take away what we can and we move on to next week. So let's get straight into this one, the round 3 review of Port Adelaide versus West Coast. Well, let's start with the first bounce really. You know, straight away West Coast got that first clearance and they were really on from the outset, and we just never really looked on as such. And I think, you know, you always look at Port Adelaide's first clearance and what they're going to do in that first. I mean, Brad Johnson said it perfectly in the pre-game for Fox Footy. He said you always got to be on in that first 10 minutes away from home at Optus Stadium against West Coast, because they're going to come out firing, especially with the 40,000+ crowd that were there. You have to come out firing. And the last time we played the Eagles, both at Metricon and in Perth a couple of years ago, we were on from the outset and really silenced the crowd, took away that home ground advantage and made the most of our opportunities. In this one, well, I could tell. You know, I could always tell from the first bounce how on we are. And I had that sinking feeling straight away. I was like, oh, crap. We're not on. We're not, we were loose on our men inside the centre square from the first bounce. The midfielders weren't awake, and we put our defensive lineup under pressure basically straight away. And it was from there an onslaught. They kicked 3 goals within 4 minutes of play, and it was just, I was thinking to myself, all right, 3 goals, 4 minutes. You know, teams have had these quick starts, and the opposition have grinded their way back and made it a really a tight tussle in the end. But we just never really looked like we were able to get that tight tussle game going, and every time we looked even a quarter decent to what we normally are, West Coast were able to control the game from the outset. And it was just really a disappointing performance after a game that was so hyped up to be a close contest. To put out that effort was, well, I'm not going to say pathetic, I'm not going to say embarrassing. I think it was just disappointing. We've seen these performances in the past come and go. Richo in the coverage said that it's not a trend for Port Adelaide. I kind of agree with him in terms of we don't put out those types of performances anymore 2, 3, 4 times in a row. But it is a concern that we do put these out against tough opposition. And I have a couple of reasons I think we had this lazy, I think, mindset going into this one. It's not intentional. It's definitely, before we thought it was a bit intentional and a bit lethargic, and you know the motivation's not there. And I definitely think Ken and the coaching staff and even the leadership group of Jonas Wines, Hartlett, Dixon, Gray, Boak, you know, all these players that have been around for a while, and they know how to amp themselves up and get the game going. But it was just a little disappointing that we've come out so lethargic. A main reason of that is we had this build-up of pre-season. You know, we've had pretty soft opposition, and playing the Crows in a scratch match, and then in the Amy Series game down at Noarlunga, you know, pretty soft opposition. And they look at the Crows, they were I reckon they're overachieving. They're just going so well at the moment, and credit to them. But you look at that for Port Adelaide's perspective, they had a soft build-up to round 1. We get to North, and you could see in that first 10 minutes when North were bringing the pressure that we were on the back foot, and we hadn't experienced that. And we didn't think much of it at the time because we were able to blow them out the water in the second quarter. And it was a bit like last night where we were able to get into the second half and control the game. And I felt, you know, we still had those loose ends of no one manning up in the midfield. We didn't get the right mix in there. And, you know, we were just too loose around the ground. I think we were able to hold up West Coast a lot better than we did in the first half, obviously. And we won the second half actually pretty comfortably in the end. It was just, it was that first half, and we can take a lot away from that first half. The second half, I'm thinking that if we played 4 quarters of that, then I reckon we probably would have been in with a better shout of having a chance to win the game. But, you know, there's just certain points in time where you just look at it and you think, oh, we were so lethargic in the middle. Around the ground, we were just letting them do what they wanted. They were playing their chip game, pinpointing passes, piercing our zone, and eventually you just got to pull the plug on that and just go one-on-one. Try and be a little bit more defensive in your play and really clog up the defensive 50 and bring that defensive pressure, which we didn't really execute well at all. And yeah, just on that, that soft build-up to this game. You had North Melbourne, you had Essendon, who never blinked basically throughout the game against us. So come into this big game Saturday night away from home, your first big test of the year. We should have the credentials in the bank to say we're a top 4 team. We're going to be competing for the flag this year. But there's still that doubt from the external. And I reckon there's a little bit of doubt in the internal as well to say, I don't think we're as good as we are. And that is a bit of a concern. I think it, but then again, I look at our performances beforehand. We were so professional in the way we went about it. I'm not too concerned at the moment. We've got to bounce back next week against Richmond. A big game Friday night. It's another test. They're going to be coming hard because they've just been basically embarrassed by the Swans, beaten at their own game, and now they have to travel to the Adelaide Oval, which we've been pretty good against the Tigers, unless it's a final. We've done a pretty damn good job at beating them in the last few years. So I think it's going to be, the way we respond and just, we had these lapses last year, Brisbane. I reckon you can count St Kilda, where we were just never really in it. We were just, fighting our way back in that game and just never were able to get our game going. Geelong obviously was the massive one where we were blown out of the park and just never really gave ourselves a chance. And as I said, I put it down to the build-up with the pre-season and not having that pressure test early on has probably given us a bit of a wake-up call, and to think that walking into this game, things were just going to happen, which we have had that mindset in the past. It's a little... it's not concerning. It's just weird that we continually have these different outsets that I would have thought by now we would have cleaned up. And to look at how Richmond go, you look at the good teams that have won flags and they've had these lapses in the years gone by previously and in their premiership years. Someone on Twitter as well, I think his name's Paul, he put out a tweet saying we lost to Melbourne by 7 goals, we lost to Essendon by 7 goals, and we lost to North Melbourne by 94 points in our premiership year, which I always look at and think, yeah, you know what, premiership teams have these lapses during the season. So I'm not too concerned. But I'm putting the question mark there at the moment just because I want to see how we respond next week and see if we have any more of these lapses throughout the year. Because you definitely learn from these games. And I think Kenny will be definitely honing in on specifics. Starts with selection. I think having 4 tools, the Laddams, the Dixon, the Marshall and the Georgiadis doesn't work. It simply doesn't work. I do like Marshall. I really think he complements Dixon a lot better than Georgiadis, personally, in structure, but at the same time I think Georgiadis is just that excitement factor, and both have defensive defaults at the moment that I think they need to improve on. But overall it's going to be a tough choice to choose which one is the mix. It's a good problem to have. Laddams is the other one I have a bit of concern because he definitely, when things don't go his way, he definitely drops his head, doesn't do enough around the ground, and I think putting him in against Nat Nui in the ruck, Nat Nui's going to destroy us 9 times out of 10. He's the best ruckman in the comp. He's damaging on the floor, he's damaging in the air, and he's just going to be, just you have that X factor. So you got to nullify him on the ground, and we weren't able to do that with our mids, Wines, Boak. Willem Drew was a bit of a concern for mine. He's definitely a great defensive mid, great tackler, and can definitely pressure okay, but I don't think winning the footy enough, and his setup isn't as good as, say, what a Rockcliffe or a Power Pepper would be if they were playing. So I think Willem Drew's time at the moment is limited purely because I don't think he's having a big enough impact on the game. And as a midfielder, that is basically your number one job. Have an impact on the game, create, set up, and put that defensive pressure. Because if you're not willing to put that defensive pressure on early, you're basically throwing the game pretty early on, which is what we saw last night, unfortunately. So a lot to take away from this game. I think collectively we're going to put this in the bin, reset, move on to next week against the Tigers, which has to be a massive, massive comeback, because sitting 2-2 after 4 rounds is not going to look pretty for a side like Port Adelaide, which definitely runs on confidence, and the question marks will start to come if we don't beat Richmond next week. So I'm almost stamping it as a must-win game, because if we don't, then we're setting ourselves up to having a big fight ready for the next journey of our 2021 season. Let me know in the comments below what you think, Port fans, of this one. There's a lot to take away, so much so that I want to hear what you guys think. A lot of positives I still took away from this one. I thought Houston and Amon did stand up. They were really, really good. I thought the likes of Ollie Wines in the second half were actually not too bad. It was great to see the likes of Rosie back playing pretty good footy. Robbie Grave, I thought, was sensational around the ground. Very damaging when he went into the midfield and kicked 3 goals, his first 3 goals of the year. So I did say he'd have a masterclass before the game. He's kicked 3, so I'm counting it. So that's what I'm taking away from this one. But yeah, overall, negatives outweigh the positives. But definitely, the key word in this one is learn, and we'll deliver next week. Well, that wraps up my review of round 3, Port Adelaide versus West Coast, losing by 37 points. Unfortunately, not the result we wanted, but round 3, we've got plenty of rounds to go and a lot to look forward to. Richmond next week, Friday night footy. Get there, Port fans. I want to see you loud and proud. So make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're new, for plenty more Port Adelaide content as well coming your way this week and for the rest of the rounds coming in 2021. My name is Anthony, and as always, come the pair.